Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Gardner on this Wednesday, March the 14th, 2018. Good to have you out here for the special Wednesday show and our first and only show of the week. As always, before we get going, let me remind you all the ways which you can get involved with the show, interact with us, and contribute to the show. Have your voice heard by email us at itspotlight401@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight401. Please remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And as always, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure you like our fan page once you find it, and then you can interact with us and do all that good stuff. So, again, I want to apologize for yesterday. It was kind of a really, really crazy day. We had an emergency with my wife. She had to go to the emergency room, and as you all know, we have a newborn, and so it was kind of crazy. Everything's okay at the moment. Everything's okay now, but yesterday was kind of a rough day, and yeah. So that it was kind of a rough day. So let's just leave it at that. But so that's why I canceled and rescheduled for today. I obviously didn't want this to go into Thursday because obviously the tournament starts tomorrow in earnest. Obviously the first four is underway, but I didn't want this to get to tomorrow, obviously. So that's why we are doing this tonight on Wednesday, so we can avoid doing it during the tournament. So we'll obviously keep you updated on the first four scores. Hopefully we'll be off the air before the second one, because that's arguably going to be the better game. And I don't want to, I would have felt the same way yesterday, try to get off, even though we're Syracuse homers. I would have felt the same way about last night's game too, trying to get off the air before that one was over, or at least for most of that one, so y'all can check that out. Because I expect the second games, in those first four, usually the better games anyway. So, obviously, if you want, check it out, whatever. You don't want to have to listen to me in the background. So we try to get things going, get things over with, so that you can all enjoy that. If you so choose. So we have a lot to go through tonight. Obviously with the tournament on the horizon tomorrow, which is a great day. Everybody always excited about that. With the tournament starting tomorrow, we have to preview the bracket, make some predictions, and do all that kind of stuff. So we will do that here today. And we'll do what we always do. We'll start off by discussing the bracket, who should have gotten in that didn't, who got in that shouldn't have, talk about all the big topics related to it briefly. We can't do a lot with it, and really, honest to God, there's not a lot you can do with it. Every year there's going to be people that complain. Every year there's going to be teams that get left out that shouldn't have, and we can belabor the point until we're blue in the face, and it probably already has been belabored, but we will do that. And then we'll kind of give a general overview of the bracket, which regions we think are tough and all that. And then we'll make our predictions and go kind of down the line and discuss the games, potential games, all the games. And, of course, along the way, obviously we make our predictions tonight, but along the way, we'll, make predictions along the way, too, as it goes along, and talk about the games as they go along over these next few weeks and all that kind of stuff. So, so that's how we'll do it. So the bulk of the show today is going to be college basketball and the NCAA tournament. We do have a couple other things that we're going to do briefly. As I mentioned, the show description, an abbreviated version of the box office beat, maybe like 5 minutes if you're lucky. And then we'll do a quick, again, abbreviated version of the TV picks of the week. And then we'll do a couple WWE things. Talk about Fastlane, talk about all the other big stuff from Raw and SmackDown this week. We'll do that very quickly as well. So we got a little bit. So it's a lot to do, and with this being our only show, we have to kind of get it in, and we will. So we got a lot to do, and my co-host is not on. So what I'm going to do is, I was going to start with the NCAA tournament. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to start off. We're going to do the box office stuff first, and then by that point, hopefully he jumps on, and then we can go to the tournament stuff. We're going to dance around here tonight, because I think that any time that we can save is beneficial. So we'll start off with the box office, and I'm going to be very quick because there's not a lot to say. It's funny. We said going into last weekend that Wrinkle in Time had, is probably going to be the movie that knocked Black Panther off its perch. And I think people have been saying that even before Black Panther even came out. Black Panther probably get probably number one until Wrinkle in Time came out and knocked it off. Well, that didn't happen. Black Panther was number one again this weekend with $40.8 million. It's its fourth straight week at number one. It dropped off 38%. It continues to hold very, very well. Excuse me. 40.8 million. A Wrinkle in Time debuts with 33.1. So Disney takes the top two spots. 33.1 is nothing to snub your nose at. It's up to 45.7 million worldwide. It's okay. Is it a flop? No. It didn't get the best reviews. It's something that many people thought might do better than this. It's, I will probably talk about this a lot in the next few weeks, a little bit more. Maybe it depends, because it's an interesting topic. This is a property that's been adapted before. And Marin Engel was a really interesting quote at the time when it was adapted for TV. I think it was like back in 2003. She had an interesting quote, which was, "It was exactly what I expected, and it was awful." And this is a property that most people feel can never be properly translated to the screen, or at least done in such a way that people would be interested and come out in droves. So it was a shock when Disney decided to go back into this well and do this again. It was a shock. And so they do this, and there's a lot of interest, and the promotion was really well done, and they stood behind it, and they got a great cast, and they're trying to sell this movie to children, to families, much like Black Panther, pushing it as a cultural event, equality, African Americans in film, women in film. They were really pushing that, and even opening this up to having screenings for sponsored by businesses to for kids that can't afford to see the movie, or boys and girls clubs and all that kind of stuff. So they really tried. They did everything they could to sell this movie. And look, again, this is not a horrible total. It's not. I mean, especially if you talk about early part of March, when there's no school vacations or anything. And I mean, this is a movie that was strictly geared towards families and children, and kids are in school right now. There's nothing else really going on. So, if this had come out in February, right around winter break, maybe you have a better chance at squeezing out a better opening. But with Black Panther coming out around that time, that really would have been intelligent business. So, especially since they're both Disney films. So, again, could it have done better? Yes. Both with reviews and with gross. Is it awful? Is this a train wreck? No, it's not. We'll see where it ends up. But ultimately, I don't think it is. I haven't seen the film yet. I'm interested in it, but so we'll see. But I mean, Disney on one hand got to be extremely happy with how Black Panther has done, but on the other hand, they're probably worried about A Wrinkle in Time because it's a big investment. So you got Black Panther at 1, Wrinkle in Time debuts at 2. The other one of the other big films of the weekend, Strangers Pray at Night, debuts at number 3 with 10.4 million. So not a great total, but not shocking, given, like I said, I didn't think it'd do very well to start. Red Sparrow dropped from 2nd to 4th, 8.5 million, almost a 50% drop off. Not shocking. I thought it would hold up a little bit better, but it didn't. And some talk about Jennifer Lawrence and her box office draw value. No shock there. I mean, again, I read this article this past week about how people think that there's no such thing as a box office draw anymore. It's the property itself, the movie itself that sells. I disagree fundamentally with that. You see what The Rock does, you see what Robert Downey Jr. does. These things are cyclical. Every actor or actress usually has their period, their couple year period where they're the dominant force, and then it drops off. And then some actors are able to get it back. Some aren't. And then it's not that they can never have another movie do well again. It's just that they don't get that kind of run again where it seems like everything that they put out there turns to gold, So it is what it is, but I mean, hopefully she picks a project that brings her back to the top. I mean, she has the X-Men franchise, so at least she still has that. But it's a disappointment. Red Sparrow. Game Night dropped from 4th to 5th, 7.8 million, a 24% drop off in its third week, which isn't too bad. Pretty good hold. Peter Rabbit continued to hold very well, dropping from 5th to 6th with 6.7 million, a 32% drop off. Not bad again. If it can hang tough until to the end of March, might get a nice Easter boost. We talked about that movie a lot these past few weeks and why it was released so early, but it is what it is again. Let's see what else. Oh, Death Wish dropped from 3rd to 7th with 6.5 million, almost a 50% drop off. Not too surprising there. Annihilation dropped below 5 million, 41%, from 6th to 8th. Again, not shocking. Two other movies that were among the films that came out last week, new films that came out last week. The Hurricane Heist debuts in 9th place for 3 million. It did even worse than I expected. I expected it to flop. I didn't expect it to flop that bad, but it did. And then Gringo, which I thought would do a little bit better because, again, over the last maybe year and a half, there hasn't been too many comedies. There's been a lot more family-type comedies, but not a lot of, like, true comedies, like maybe adult-like comedies. That's why I think Game Night's done it as well as it has. I thought Gringo would do at least like around 8, 9, 10 million. It opens at 2.7 million, so that's not good for that film either. So very disappointing there. As far as some movies getting an Oscar push after the Oscars, because sometimes that happens. The Shape of Water got a little bit of a boost, 58%, 2.3 million. Other than that, though, nothing else really seemed to get any boost. Greatest Showman continues to hold tough, drops from 9th to 13th, but 1.9 million as that movie approaches 400 million worldwide, which is tremendous. I think it's open in the UK now and it's doing tremendous business there. Again, it's a big success story, much like Jumanji is. You know, Jumanji's still in 10th place right now, and it's at 937.4 million. It's getting released on digital platforms this week. But boy, you know what? If it could have squeezed out a few extra weeks, boy, it's so close to $1 billion. Who would have thought? And that's crazy. Jumanji's almost $1 billion movie. It's nuts. So that's the story from last week, and now we look ahead to this week and what it will bring, and it will bring 4 new releases, 2 of which are on the smaller side, 2 of which are on the bigger side, and should do very, very well, and probably will end Black Panther's #1 streak. Let's talk about the smaller releases first. The smallest release is 7 Days in Entebbe, an action thriller from Focus Features opening in 800 theaters, starring Rosamund Pike, Daniel Bryan, Eddie Marsan. With 800 theaters and the fact that not many people probably know about this movie, more of a smaller budget release. If it makes $5 million, that would be a shock. Probably looking at like 2, 3 million, 2.5 million kind of thing. Then you also have I Can Only Imagine, a family film from Roadside Attraction opening 1,620 theaters. You probably noticed the promotion for this film. They've ratcheted it up recently. It's PG. Only a $7 million budget movie. Cloris Leachman, Dennis Quaid star in it. Again, if it makes 2 or 3 million, even though it has double the theaters of 7 Days in Entebbe, you know, even though it's double the theaters, I don't again expect it to do much. If it breaks 5 million, that would be a pleasant surprise, but maybe like 3, maybe a little more than 2.5, 3, maybe like 4 million, 4.5. It might get close to 5, but I wouldn't expect anything more unless something surprising happens. Now the 2 big releases that figure to do very, very, very good business. Love, Simon, an action adventure. They're labeling it as an action adventure, but folks, it's a romantic comedy. That's what it is. I don't know why it's being labeled as action adventure on Box Office Mojo, but it is what it is. It comes to you from Fox. It'll be opening in 2,401 theaters, starring Nick Robinson, Josh Duhamel, and Jennifer Garner. This movie's gotten a lot of attention. It's gotten some good reviews. It's got a lot going for it. There is a part of me, if it wasn't for the theater count, I might pick this to take first place this weekend. But I think the theater count's going to hurt this movie. Not so much that it can't pull in a good number, but it probably prevents it from hitting #1. If this movie was opening in over about 3,000 or more theaters, I think it could take #1. There's a lot of momentum behind this movie. But with the theater count, I just don't see how it can do that over Tomb Raider or even Black Panther. So I'm expecting it to maybe pull 20 million max. Maybe a little more if things track very well. The biggest release, Tomb Raider, an action-adventure film from Warner Brothers, opening in over 3,700 theaters. Excuse me. starring Alicia Vikander, who's taken over the role of Lara Croft from Angelina Jolie, who played her in the previous film. Dominic West, Daniel Wu, also starring in this film. It's already made $14.2 million overseas, $94 million budget. It's been well promoted. Look, it's going to do okay. I don't think it's going to do gangbusters business. I don't think it's going to do great. I don't expect it to do like 40, 50. Like, I don't expect to do 50, 60 million. It could probably pull in 40. I'm going like 30 to 35, which will probably put it right up there with Black Panther. I expect Black Panther to be. Could Black Panther be number one again? I suppose it could. I highly doubt it. I think Tomb Raider will eke this out. I think it's going to be close. So I'm going with Tomb Raider in first with around 30 to 35 million. Black Panther around maybe 27, 28. Love Simon around 18, 19, or 20. Could be a little more than that. Let's see. Anything else of note coming out? No. Okay. Let's see what else. I got to Love Simon, right? Yeah. I think you'll see A Wrinkle in Time, maybe around 14 or 15 million. And then I think you'll see Strangers around 6.5, 7. Red Sparrow around 5.5 or 6. Game Night around there as well, about 5.5, 6. And then Peter Rabbit right around 5 million. And everything else I expect to be under 5 million. So that's how I see this weekend's box office going. So not something overall. It'll probably be a solid week. I don't think it'll be a huge week, but it'll be a solid week. And, you know, the movies that have been the stories over the last few weeks, Black Panther, Greatest Showman on the lower end of the scale, but it'll continue to probably do well. And now you introduce Love Simon to the mix and see what it does. Those will be the stories, I'd imagine, this weekend. And then Black Panther, it's been a story for the last month. Next week, you have a number of new releases. Midnight Sun, a romance film from Open Road Films, Pacific Rim Uprising, Paul, Apostle of Christ, Sherlock Gnomes, and Unsane. That's really all the big Easter releases all coming into play. And then the week after that, you got God's Not Dead, All Right in Darkness, Tyler Perry's Acrimony, and Ready Player One, which will be coming out on Wednesday. Thursday, pardon me. So all those, again, Easter kind of movies that are being released this year. So some big movies still to come here the rest of this month. The box office is going to keep kind of filling up here as we approach April and then, of course, summer. So we'll talk about those movies all next week and get into all those. And next week should be more of an eventful week, I would imagine, box office-wise in terms of competition. So we'll talk more about that next week. All right, so Mike is still not on yet. So he just texted me, so he should be coming soon, I imagine. But at least we got the box office done, so that's good. So let's do this. While we're still waiting for him, I said we're going to dance around a little bit tonight. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from the entertainment stuff to I'm going to give you all my wrestling thoughts. And then hopefully he'll come on and I'll throw to him and let him get his box office thoughts in, his wrestling thoughts in. And then we'll do the TV stuff. And then we'll just do the rest of the show with college. And then that way we don't have to move around too much. We'll do it that way. I think that works. So, all right. So let's jump into some wrestling from the world of entertainment here. Obviously, Mike's just jumped on now. So let's welcome him in. Mike, you're in the spotlight. Can you hear me?
Unfortunately.
Oh, how old are you two? Okay. So I clearly started without you. I did the whole box office beat without you, so you'll probably be happy about that.
Well, you said you told me last night 8:30.
Well,
I was planning around that.
Well, if you follow my Facebook page, my Twitter, you see that I made a mistake, an error. And I moved it up so that we could try to get this done quicker for everybody's sake.
Well, I was busy at 8.
That's fine.
Since you don't check my Facebook either, I feel like this is quid pro quo.
But check your Facebook for what? You mean the login? That's not on there. The password's there, but not the login.
No, you had to click on the link.
I did. It didn't go anywhere.
That's on you, champ, because I sent it to you.
Well, whatever. Anyway, I did. The funny thing is, I did go to that Facebook post, and I was met with no success. But anyway, so yeah, I did check it. So you should apologize to me because that's mean. Good.
I should apologize to you?
Should apologize to me because that was mean. Because you assumed I didn't pay attention. I did pay attention. But anyway. Should
I apologize to you? Let's see. I'm going to check my Magic 8-Ball. It says no.
I wish we had like live polling to see what the audience said. Like, hey, should Mike apologize to Brian? They probably would say no. But...
I believe the options would be yes, no, and Brian, you should totally eat shit.
They would probably select that one. Yeah.
Yep. Probably.
Yeah. Unanimously, I imagine.
Yep.
Anyway, I did go through the box office. I don't think you have anything to comment on there. So, I mean,
Black Panther is great and the #1 movie.
4 straight weeks.
Yep.
And Disney has the top 2 spots. Shocker. So, yeah, that's kind of all you need to really say about it. But, and Jumanji's almost $1 billion movie. That's cool.
Yep.
That's cool. All right, so I guess we don't have to. I guess we don't have to really jump around too much. I guess I'll just do the TV highlights now so that we can go to wrestling and then get into the bracket stuff and get that done. So I did watch some TV this week. Hooray! I caught up on Walking Dead. Nothing to see there. Let's just say I'm incredibly disappointed in that show. I'm just going to leave it at that. The DC shows, I like one of them. I like Legends of Tomorrow. I think that's been a good show. I mean, Mike talked about off the air how they're actually making use of Damien Dark, which is nice. After what Arrow did to him, hatchet job. So yeah, that's nice. But what else did I watch this week? I'm trying to think of what I caught up on. Because I watched more this week than I probably expected to watch, in addition to college basketball. I did watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., obviously. I'm a fanboy. And that was incredible. That was an incredible episode. I'm not going to spoil it for those that haven't seen it, but there's some returns in that episode. One that I didn't expect. One that is a true crowd pleaser, and it was very important. If you like Phil Coulson, this episode is pivotal to him. It's well acted. It's very emotional, and the ending is something that fans have waited 5 years for. They really rewarded people that have stuck with the show. And it was a clever way to celebrate 100th episode, but also move the story forward. They did a very good job with that episode, so they should be very proud of it. So yeah, that was really, really good. There was something else I watched, and I can't think of what it was. Well, I'll throw to you. If I think of anything else, I'll throw it out there. There was something else there, and I just can't remember. But yeah, so I'm being quick because I'm trying to save time. So that's my TV highlights so far. Unless I think of something else. Mike, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to go quick too, because honestly, I've got a lot to see on my DVR, and I really haven't gotten to any of it. So I will say that I am caught up on Murdoch Mystery / Artful Detective, another great episode this week. Ovation sometimes switches the episode order around. This one was about a murder of a professor at a school. They thought it was by 2 boys. This one was actually supposed to be the next episode. Was supposed to get another one this week, but hey, we get what we get. So it was a solid episode. Kind of made a new character important in that Inspector Brackenreed's son, now Officer Brackenreed, I suppose, is now going to be a full-time character. He's followed his father into the constabulary. So good episode, really solid. Legends of Tomorrow, I'm caught up on it until this. The Darks Yes, as I can say, Damien Dark much better used on Legends of Tomorrow than it was in Arrow. It's not even funny. You could tell it's having an absolute ball in the role. Rip is pretty much back full time. Well, no, not back full time. He's pretty much out of exile. His role for the moment was to bring Kid Flash onto the Legends of Tomorrow, and Kid Flash had really, really good first adventure with the Legends. They saved Roy, who was being hunted by Damien Dark. Ironically, it was a really funny episode. So fantastic stuff. Legends of Tomorrow's having a killer season. I don't know how they're going to end it, but it's going to be good. I'm not caught up on Black Lightning, but I don't think I've talked about Black Lightning an awful lot. I'm one episode back on Black Lightning, and Black Lightning is kind of everything Arrow wants to be. But the love interests on Black Lightning aren't annoying. Black Lightning is really trying to operate. He's really in this moral kind of thing. He wants to be this principal, but everybody says that the solution for the town, the city from the 100 and Tobias Whale was he has to be Black Lightning. And Black Lightning has unfinished business with Tobias Whale, and Lady Eve, who was the other bigger bad, kind of died in a power play by Tobias Whale. They framed Black Lightning for it. There was an episode that kind of came after this. Spoilers, obviously, I guess. Too late, I suppose, if you're waiting for it. But so I'm not caught up on it, but I could say right now Black Lightning has been a really, really interesting and outstanding show. And the way the kind of tonal shifts with the characters and the drama, it's everything Arrow kind of wants to be right now. The love interest, which is Black Lightning's ex-wife, and they're trying to reconcile, and she still has to try to reconcile. They broke up because he was Black Lightning, and she couldn't take him being coming home every night a bloody mess.
Right.
So it's everything Arrow wants to be. The love interest isn't boring. The subplots are great. His daughters are fun characters. The older one's a lesbian. She's kind of starting this relationship with another potential hero, Grace Choi. Grace Choi is also a hero in the comics, and we're going to maybe see her evolution sometime soon. It's good stuff so far. Black Lightning's a decent show. Can't say enough good things about it. I can't talk about Lucifer Lethal Weapon. Fox and Spectrum are still having this feud, so
yeah,
good
sucks.
Lord, it sucks because I really would like to see where Lucifer and Lethal Weapon were outstanding this season. Can't talk about it. So until that nonsense takes place and they figure it out, can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
I have not. The season finale of Bull aired. I have not seen it yet. Flash, I'm an episode behind on. Yeah, I'm an episode behind on the Flash. So I don't really want to comment on it. It's all right. It's all right. That's all I got to say. It's just all right. But yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No, I mean Dr. Blake on Netflix. That's usually on PBS/Masterpiece. But I found out the first 3 seasons are on Netflix, so I've been watching that a little bit, and that was fantastic. Can't complain. It's good stuff. Of course, that's a period mystery piece set in Australia, the town of Ballarat. Following Surgeon Police Detective Dr. Blake. It's good stuff. If you're on Netflix, what can I say? It's worth a watch.
Huh.
And if you can catch it on PBS, it's worth a watch. And I just want to mention this. I don't know why this kind of came up, but apparently this website called The Wrap have partnered up with this emotion measurement company called this, and they weekly look at character TV viewers have the most worked out, who are most invested in social media this week. And I bring this up because we're going to transition to wrestling real quick.
Right.
And the three top characters and people they were in the week were, because the iHeartRadio Music Awards were this week, Korean boy band BTS.
Okay.
Up in America a little bit. They were, and they have a huge worldwide. They were the season 2 finale and motion manipulator. This Is Us. Apparently, Kate Pearson. I don't know who that is.
I think that's Manny Moore's character. No, not Manny Moore's character. That's no, I know who it is. I just can't think of her name.
Chrissy Metz.
Yes, that's her. That's her character. Yep. Okay.
I don't know the show. I just know the show is emotionally manipulative.
You know my feelings on that show. Yeah.
Because, but apparently, for somebody who met for a site which measures emotional response, This Is Us should be like number 1 or 2 or 3 every week. So yes, Kate and lesser extent Toby, were number 2, and number 3, and this transitions into wrestling, is WWE superstar Asuka, who everybody was excited for not only her appearance on Fastlane, but her appearance on SmackDown as well. So it shows that there is some investment from third-party sources in Asuka's major match against Charlotte, which she chose at the Fastlane pay-per-view, which I imagine we're going to talk about now.
Yes. That's a really good transition, Mike. You earned your keep tonight. That's great.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
That was great. So we obviously are on wrestling now. I'm going to try to be quick here because a lot of this is self-explanatory. First of all, you're right. That was one of the big headlines from Fastlane, which was a very predictable Fastlane. What's to say that nothing? The only match that really surprised was Randy Orton beating Bobby Roode for the U.S. title. So I guess they had to throw one swerve in there, and that was the one. And that sets it up for the rematch at Mania. I know interject Jinder Mahal. It's a way to get Randy Orton on the card. So it works. But everything else went according to plan. I don't know, maybe the Bludgeon Brothers interfering and attacking, laying everybody out was kind of a surprise. And that was an effective segment. But, I mean, look, Fastlane was a pretty good pay-per-view. There was good matches. They developed everything. They set up Mania pretty well. The Asuka-Charlotte thing was a cool moment. The crowd was completely invested. They've done a very good job over the last couple of nights with that, right down to the stuff with Alexa Bliss on Monday. They really did a good job transitioning her from Alexa Bliss to Charlotte, and then moving Alexa Bliss on to Nia Jax. They did a really good job with that, I thought. And then last night with Charlotte and Asuka at SmackDown was fantastic. And the ratings were the highest ratings since April of 2017. So it looks like the Asuka, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn stuff kind of helped.
Well, I imagine the AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura stuff helped. But let's be clear here. The big stories coming out of Fastlane wasn't the fact that AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura were going to wrestle. That was spoiled at the Rumble.
Right.
It's exactly what you said. It was the biggest story in that Fastlane main event wasn't AJ Styles retains and John Cena doesn't have a path to WrestleMania. The biggest stories coming out of the Rumble were Asuka challenged Charlotte, which kind of proves it's the biggest women's money match WWE has.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn proving to the world why they're the most interesting part of SmackDown. So
you're right. It was a very effective. Just when you thought that they had moved on from the Shane stuff, they reintegrated Sunday night in the main event, and then you get the great segment at the end of the show yesterday, which was very effective after Shane steps down and then not steps down, but goes on indefinite leave, and then tries to set them up in a Mania match, Owens and Zayn, and then they attack them. It was a great segment. Again, the Asuka Charlotte stuff has been good too. So I thought SmackDown had a really good few days here where things their card really came together really well. The Cena stuff's been interesting. They finally came out and did what they needed to do. I mean, the only problem, the one thing I will say about WWE this year, I like that they've done a lot of build up on some matches, but on others they've waited too long. And I understand why they did, because they're like, oh well, we have these pay-per-views, we don't want to blow it. We don't want people to know, oh, well, Cena's facing the Undertaker, so he's not going to win. Oh, well, Asuka's going after Charlotte. So I understand why they did what they did. And that's kind of why, for years, they never had a pay-per-view in March. You know that. It was always, you had Elimination Chamber in February, and then that gave you, 6, 7, 8 weeks to build up to Mania. So you never had to worry about, well, we can't start the build-up because we have a pay-per-view in 2 weeks. You never had that problem. Now you have that problem. And I understand why they did it, but now you have 3 weeks to build up a Cena Undertaker program that's barely been built. I mean, granted, Cena did his best on Monday night, did a very good job, but we need to see the Undertaker. And I'm starting to get the feeling that our exposure to the Undertaker is going to be not until WrestleMania. They might Bray Wyatt this thing. You know what I mean? You can see that coming, more or less, if you think about it. It's got that feel to it, where Cena's gonna come out next week and say, "Well, you didn't accept." Maybe what they'll do is do like they did with Bray Wyatt, where you saw like a message appear on the screen with a lightning bolt. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I kind of see this going. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it was a good promo, but I think they have to do more build up. The Asuka, Alexa, I mentioned the Asuka stuff, but Alexa Bliss and Nia Jax, I thought they did a good job with Monday night. The Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar stuff continued. Now Roman's suspended. Brock didn't show up again. Next week, Brock will show up. Roman Reigns probably won't be there. By the way, there's rumors that Paul Heyman's the one that's handling that program. So, we'll see how that goes. But, and then we had Braun Strowman in the main event on Monday, winning a battle royal to challenge the Bar at WrestleMania for the WWE Raw Tag Team Championships. And he don't have a tag partner. So either we're going to have a handicap match, or we're going to have some random Braun partner. And again, we talked about what the whole deal with Braun Strowman was. They were waiting. They pulled him from a match with The Miz because they didn't know if they're going to need him in the main event. Like Universal title match and all that other stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on there. But I guess they're putting him in the tag title scene for a while. So we'll see what happens there. The Miz stuff's been good. I mean, I thought Raw had a good show. I thought SmackDown had a nice few days. In addition to all that, you got the Jeff Hardy stuff. We'll see what happens there. Apparently, he was expected to return right around Mania time. I don't know if the legal issues will play a role in that. But, and I guess Dean Ambrose is being reevaluated. It doesn't look like he's coming back anytime soon. Outside of that, though, I don't think there's been too much other news. So, Mike, you have anything more on wrestling you want to add?
Well, sure do, but I know we're going to be quick on time. But real quick on Fastlane, because we usually evaluate all the matches. Nakamura versus Rusev. Good match. It was actually really good. The crowd was really hot for it, surprisingly. But Nakamura, it was the wrong match at the wrong time. But it was a good match, and it was the right way that kept Rusev kind of strong. Nakamura had to build momentum into the WrestleMania match. It's just Rusev probably was the wrong guy because Jesus Christ, it's about ready to turn Rusev face. But you know what? They did really well with that match. Rude versus Orton. Did that match never seem to get out of first gear for you?
Yeah.
That match never into the finish like that. Rude and Orton are capable of so much, but it never got out of first gear. So, yeah, Orton won. And like halfway through SmackDown, he looked bored with the U.S. title. That was mighty quick. But baby's crying.
Yep.
Becky Lynch versus Natalya and Carmella happened. The Bludgeon Brothers interrupting Usos. Looks like we're going to get another triple threat at Mania. Second one built up on this show. But Xavier Woods, that power bomb on the steps was really nasty. You can kind of tell the way his head bounced off the steps. It looked really, really nasty. So, I don't know. Charlotte Flair versus Ruby Riott was a star-making performance for Ruby Riott. I guarantee you, though, if this match happened 3 months ago, 4 months ago, Ruby Riott would have won this match.
Agreed.
Wholeheartedly. If this match had happened in December, Ruby Riott would have won this match. But it happened less than a month away from WrestleMania, so Charlotte had to retain. And unfortunately for Ruby Riott, it's going to be the last chance she gets to it's going to be her last chance for a legitimate shot at the women's title for a while, because there was so much hype for Asuka coming out. The moment Charlotte raised her title and you saw the lights go out, the no mask appear on the screen, everybody knew it was happening, and everybody lost their damn minds. And Asuka comes dancing. Asuka was in full troll mode that night. She comes down, she kind of sneaks into the ring, salutes Charlotte, does her thing, and just smiles and laughs to it, bounces to her music, points at the WrestleMania sign, and then Charlotte does this weird screamy thing. Nobody quite knows what Charlotte was doing. But then Asuka's like, haha, okay, and dances away. It was a moment. It was a really cool way to do it. And the six-pack challenge. Couple things. Baron Corbin should never be anywhere near Kevin Owens when Kevin Owens has a potential back injury. And whoever made the decisions to give have KO take the choke backbreaker, which admittedly, really cool move. Owens is not the right guy to take that move right now. Really not. Because you could tell Owens is kind of nursing his back for the rest of the match and probably wasn't just selling. Yeah, they built up the Cena stuff pretty well. But Owens has the match won. He accidentally kicks Shane McMahon. He accidentally kicked with Shane McMahon and Sami Zayn were drawing at each other. And then Kevin Owens aims a super kick at Sami Zayn. Sami ducks. Super kick hits Shane McMahon. Then they go in the ring. Owens takes out Cena, hits Dolph with a pop-up powerbomb. 1, 2, Shane interferes. Owens is in the corner like, what the fuck are you doing? Turns around right into a haluva kick by Sami Zayn. 1, 2, and you can see Shane McMahon like, oh, I'm going to screw this guy too. 1, 2, pulls Sammy out. And then from there, it was a sprint to the finish. And then AJ pins Owens with the phenomenal forearm after Owens pop-up powerbombs John Cena. And from there on, they have a really good visual of Cena. Really cool visual of Cena in the ring, and he pushes the camera away.
Yeah.
You have AJ, and then you had Shane walking past Owens and Zayn, who were just looking at him with contempt because, let's be honest here, the only two other people on SmackDown with a claim to the title now are Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So, interesting stuff.
That's the irony.
So, yeah. Irony, yeah. And Fastlane was a good show. Don't get me wrong. It was predictable as all shit, but it was a good show.
Right.
Raw was fine. baby. Asuka and Mickey James had a good match. It was kind of setting up. Alexa, I'm sorry. At this point, do you really need to go the weight? And do you really need to go the weight angle? Alexa Bliss is better than that. Come on. Alexa Bliss is so much better than that.
Somebody even said it was even made worse by the fact that Mickey James was right there too. Because you remember that angle.
Piggy James.
Yeah.
Piggy James. Did we really need to do that? You could have done that more. I mean, you could have it could have been like, oh, well, you don't have to don't bring up Nia's weight and size, but again, it's kind of made that more. You wanted people to boo Alexa Bliss. I mean, it's a good way of doing it, but still, did you have to go there? Did you have to just keep saying, oh, there's a language barrier? We all know Asuka says, I already beat you. I wanted a challenge. It's like, come on, guys. But yeah. It was, and obviously the biggest story out of Raw, hey, Roman suspended, so next week Brock's going to be there, lol. Yeah, and the big story was Braun Strowman doing Braun Strowman things. God. Braun Strowman doing Braun Strowman things is the entire reason to watch Raw at this point in time. The fact that Braun Strowman is not in the Universal title match at SummerSlam is an embarrassment. But now Braun gets to fight the Bar at WrestleMania. Yeah. Braun Strowman gets to fight and I know people are like, oh, this is going to bury the tag team division. It's like, oh, the tag team division's weak and it's being exposed. I'm like, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit, but still, it's Braun Strowman doing Braun Strowman things. And what the world likes and enjoys is Braun Strowman doing Braun Strowman things. Although, who knows?
So while you were doing this, I just got this report from one of our listeners or viewers or whatever, saying that the whole steroid thing with Roman Reigns.
Yes.
The guy that's been what's his name? John Bravo, I think his name is.
Yes, John Bravo.
Been talking about unveiling the evidence and doing this whole video about like everything that he has on the situation. Apparently, he's going to do this 25-minute video on YouTube Friday, unveiling all the evidence he has. So interesting. So
maybe they committed to the Braun Strowman thing a little too fast.
They can easily get out of that. They can get out of that.
They could easily. They were given yes, they were given a pass. Also on Monday, they announced the first ever Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal.
That's gone over well.
And it's like, the thought of running a all women's battle royal to kind of go along the Andre is a great idea. Naming it after the Fabulous Moolah, who by all rights held women's wrestling down and pushed women's wrestling back for, let's say, about 30 to 40 years.
Correct.
Who has, and I'm not going to get into the entire story now, but let's just say the Fabulous Moolah has this reputation of scamming women out of their pays for decades, for pimping out her trainees, and for getting them hooked on drugs so they'd be easier to control.
Jeez.
This is the Fabulous Moolah's reputation. Not the WWE's revisionist history, where Moolah was this legend of legends. She held it. There's a reason she held the title for like 30 years. It's because she had the iron grip on women's wrestling and refused to elevate any talent. And anytime a female competitor would rise up like Wendy Richter, Fabulous Moolah would feel threatened and would do something to screw over that talent. Wendy Richter, there's a reason Wendy Richter, after WrestleMania 2, was black industry. Because she shot on Moolah after Moolah screwed her out of the title. And I was telling you this last night. Mildred Burke was the first major female lady wrestler in the United States. She was the NWA Women's Champion around the time of Lou Thez. They put her in the Hall of Fame a few years ago. They put her in the Hall of Fame. This was the Lou Thesz's contemporary. Why not name the Battle Royal after her? Because by all accounts, Mildred Burke was on the up and up. WWE fucked up. That's what they did. And I know we're going to spend the next hour talking about basketball, and it's fine, but I had to get this off my chest. WWE fucked up. I know they want to name everything after the women they like and the women they built, and Moolah and Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. had this long running relationship, and that's fine. But you have to know even in this culture, in this current climate, you are just appear so tone deaf by naming it after a woman who has held the women's movement in wrestling down for decades. That was so dumb, so bad. I mean, if you wanted to, Trish Stratus is right there, Lundra Blaze. Lita, you could have named it after Lita. You could have named it after James Ellsworth and people wouldn't have batted an eye. Good Lord. By the way, SmackDown, the Asuka Charlotte thing was amazing. And the end segment with Owens and Zayn literally beating the shit out of Shane McMahon. By the way, Brian, did you know WWE wanted Shane McMahon to come out as the face in that? They want people to have sympathy for Shane.
What they want and what happened is two different things.
Yeah. I'm going to say I'm not going to say it was the majority of people were rooting for Owens and Zayn during that assault on Shane McMahon. Yeah.
I don't think that's an understatement.
Look, Shane, and the whole psychology is this. Shane McMahon thought he had the friendship of Owens and Zayn. His final revenge would be at WrestleMania, where the match on the show of shows would be the final wedge to split those two apart again. And they're like, no, fuck you, Shane. Thanks for the match. We can beat each other up at any time. But you've just resigned for the moment, so now we're going to beat you up. And they put Shane out for a while. So, yes, I guess we do get Owens and Zayn at Mania. But
we'll see. I don't think they're done with that yet. We'll see.
I don't think they're done with it either. I think there's going to be a Shane McMahon involved thing. But if they are done with it and we just get Owens and Zayn at WrestleMania, well, what do you know? Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are going to have the match of the fucking night at WrestleMania, and it's not even going to be close. Oh, geez. Except for maybe Nakamura and Styles and Asuka and Charlotte. So SmackDown's going to wreck Raw at WrestleMania if those three matches stand. I'm just pointing that out.
Of course.
Yeah, that's wrestling for the week. I got to rant off. If you want to say something, you're welcome to. But right now, go ahead, Brian.
All I'm going to say is this. Going back to that Roman Reigns thing, we'll see what happens on Friday. If this is, there's something to this. They kind of set themselves up really well here because Roman's already suspended, storyline wise. So they could easily just, if they want to write him out, just say, just have him suspended. Vince keeps the suspension. And then Braun Strowman, well, you weren't supposed to be in that. He was just trying to find a way to WrestleMania or whatever. They just add Braun Strowman to the Brock match. They kind of set it up very well so that if this thing comes out to be a bad thing, they can just come out of it pretty well, like just kind of changing things up. So it almost makes you think that they did that just to see, knowing that this is going to happen on Friday, just to see what happens if there's something to it. And then they got the groundwork laid out pretty well. So it's kind of like, I don't think they planned it, but it's fitting if you think about it. All right. So let's get out of wrestling because we got this basketball stuff to do, and we got a lot to do there. Tonight, the third game of the first four was completed. Texas Southern beat NC Central 64-46. Radford and St. Bonaventure won yesterday. St. Bonaventure comes from behind against UCLA last night in a great game. Last first four game coming up in about 5 minutes. Syracuse and Arizona State will face off. Both those teams were among the last four, and obviously all these teams. Obviously St. Bonaventure, UCLA are also among the last four in. Syracuse was the actual last team in the field. A lot of controversy there, much like 2 years ago when Syracuse got in, maybe more so this year because people feel like they shouldn't have gotten in. I feel like I kind of understood why people thought they shouldn't have gotten in 2 years ago. I did, to an extent. I don't understand it this year because there's easily 2 or 3 other teams that you can make the argument should not have been in this in this tournament before Syracuse.
Oklahoma. I said it. Oklahoma.
Arizona State's another one. They're another one. I'm looking at my notes here to make sure I get this right because I'm trying to keep, they're one of them. And then there's another team. I'm just trying to make sure I get this right because I'm my mind's all over the place. Alabama earned their way in. They won enough last week. Who's the other team I was thinking of? Well, they kept St. Mary's out, and wisely so. I don't think it's all right. You know what? I think it is. Yeah, I did write that down. Texas is probably the other one. I think Texas. You can make the case either way. So that's probably the weakest argument of the 3 teams I just mentioned. But at the very least, Arizona State and Oklahoma should have been out of this tournament. I don't care what they did in November, December. Now, I know when I say that, people are going to be like, well, wait, Syracuse got in probably because they're non-conference schedule. But Syracuse won games after January 1st. They won a lot of big games. They beat Virginia Tech at home. They beat Louisville on the road. They beat Miami on the road. They beat Clemson at home. They did things after January 1st. Oklahoma did not win a single road game in 2018. Oklahoma lost, 8 of the last 11?
Yes, they did.
Arizona State had that hot start. We talked all year about how Arizona State completely fell on their face. The best thing you can say about Arizona State is they didn't collapse as badly as Oklahoma did. But they still collapsed. And again, Texas, I think they're the weakest case. I understand why Texas is in, but I also understand why you take a team like Texas out. They did have more quality wins, but at the same time, now look, if you want to make the argument, and I heard Dick Vitale say this, and I realize if I say this that Syracuse doesn't make it, okay? I realize that. If you want to make the argument that you should be at least 500 or better in your conference, I will never argue with you on that. I've always said that should be the number one criteria for this committee every year. I don't care how deep your conference is. I don't care. People say, well, your conference is deep. And if you go, no, you've heard me on this show say that you should always try to get to be 500 in your conference. I think that should be a mandate. I really do. Because I think that I think there are some teams out there that think, well, if we play a schedule and we win a few games here and there, as long as we're in a Power 5 conference, we're going to be okay. And I think you get complacent. I think if you tell these teams, because that's one of the things you hear every year with these teams, whether they get in by the skin of their teeth or they're out barely. What do they say? Well, I don't know what the committee wants. Every year, the committee's sending a different message. Syracuse responded this year. They said, well, you know what? Last year, they said we didn't win on the road. And they said our non-conference schedule was weak. So they played a better non-conference, and they won games on the road. They knew what they had to do. But it's not always that direct from the committee. We know that. We've seen that over the years. Sometimes you get mixed messages. But one of the easiest things that committee can do year in and year out is say, and make one of the mandates for their criteria is saying, you know what? You have to be 500 or better in your conference. Now, if you did that this year and last year, you take out probably 10, 12 teams out of the field. But then you get a hell of a lot of mid-majors in there that probably deserve that will get in. But you know what? So what? If that's the case, that's the case. Why are we rewarding 4 or 5 Pac-12? Well, not this year, but why are we rewarding one or two Pac-12 teams that are under 500 in a bad conference? And I can say about the ACC. And I love the ACC. I think the ACC was one of the best conferences. But I don't know if some of these teams should get in. And now we're going to sit there and say, and I've said this for years, so much of this tournament's about matchups. You know, when a team gets in that people think should not get in, and then they go on, like Syracuse did a couple years ago, and go to the Final Four, everybody's like, well, they earned their way in. To an extent they did. What they did was they justified the committee selecting them, because the idea is the committee selects you with the idea that you're going to win games in the tournament, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean they should have made it. Just because they justified being selected doesn't mean they still should have made it. There's a difference in that. I'm not so I, you know, just like I think you can't use the tournament as an indictment of a conference. We know how bad or good a conference is before we even get to the NCAA tournament. Okay, we know that. You can't just go into the tournament, okay? And then let's say the ACC's got what, 9 teams in, right? And this is not going to happen. Let's say after the first weekend they only have 4 left, and then by the Final Four they have none left. Does that mean the ACC was a bad conference? No. It just means, again, it all is so dependent on your draw. This is so important to know. And we're going to talk about that when we make our predictions. The draw is the most important thing in this tournament. It's been that way for the last 10 years because of the one and dones, because of how the game has changed, you know, parity, and how these teams are no longer, there's no longer this big gap between the lower seeds and the higher seeds. That's why you're having more upsets. That's why the reality of a 16 beating a 1 gets closer every year. It's going to happen. It really, truly is going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. We've had 15s over 2s for years now. But I think you're going to see it because the disparity, the difference between these teams continues to shrink year in and year out. Now, one of the things, now again, we could talk about snubs. Look, I don't think St. Mary's got snubbed. I really don't. I'm glad the committee did not put them in. For the last few years, they've gotten in with profiles that no other team would ever have to get into this tournament.
It's trash.
They get ranked in the top 25 for doing nothing year in and year out because they beat Gonzaga once. Okay, beating Gonzaga once should not put you in the top 25. I'm sorry, maybe for a week. I'm so glad. Go ahead, Mike.
But I don't mean to interrupt because we're piling on St. Mary's, but you know what? At this point, we need to pile on St. Mary's.
Yeah.
Because one of the things every year that St. Mary's doesn't get hammered on is the fact that they don't play anybody really before their conference schedule.
Agreed.
They get Gonzaga twice every year, sometimes 3 times in the tournament, and then their conference tournament. So St. Mary's has been effectively for the last few years been given a bye for what? Teams who have done twice the work and have twice the quality wins have been pushed to the side, so we allow St. Mary's in. And this is the first year. So this kind of goes back to, this is almost the antithesis of what you said earlier about like Syracuse and Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, et cetera, and Arizona State. It's where they didn't do anything in November. They didn't do anything in December.
Right.
But whereas you can make the argument, at least Oklahoma State and Arizona State and Oklahoma and Syracuse went out and played people. And Notre Dame went out and played people in November and December. Because it's one of the things I agree with. You have to take, you can't just focus on one part of the season or the other. You have to take the team's entire season into suggestion. So, yes, you did struggle your last 8 of 10.
Right.
But you at least went out and won some games in November against good teams, or you won. But, you know, based on the fact you've lost 8 of 10 and you don't have won a road game in 2018, I would have put you out anyway. So, that being said, St. Mary's has finally been and penalized for not playing anybody but Gonzaga. They've finally been penalized. And yes, St. Mary's has this 28 and whatever record. But what the fuck? They played nobody. They friends. They play one good team every year. Gonzaga, to their credit, and I'm not a fan of Gonzaga. Gonzaga, to their credit, at least makes an effort to go play better teams than the WCC. They at least make an effort to get into a preseason tournament. They at least make an effort to try to schedule a preseason top 25 teams. You got to give Gonzaga at least that.
Right.
St. Mary's doesn't do that at all. St. Mary's is like, well, if one of the teams we play early in the season makes the tournament because they won their conference tournament, great. That helps us out. But if they don't, oh, well, we have Gonzaga.
Right.
And I saw people on Twitter complain. They're like, oh, Syracuse got in, but St. Mary's got out. Why are you complaining about that?
Here's the thing, okay?
Just because you don't like Syracuse. Oh, there's an East Coast bias. No, there's not. I mean, to an extent, there's an East Coast bias, but let's be honest here. St. Mary's doesn't play jack and or shit except for Gonzaga. At least Syracuse goes on, as you were saying.
They let a West Coast team in Arizona State that had no business being in there. Don't tell me an East Coast bias exists. I mean,
people, basketball fans on the West Coast do claim there's an East Coast bias. But then again, Duke and Carolina are on the East Coast.
Yeah,
Villanova is on the East Coast. Syracuse is on the East Coast. Kansas is in the eastern part of it.
Here's the thing I laugh at. The tournament, the committees over the years have given St. Mary's a pass. This team has gotten in how many years when they shouldn't have?
Oh, about 10 years.
They've given this team and here's the other thing. Gonzaga earned the right to be respected as a program. You know how this happened. It took years to build it into what it was. And then eventually they started getting invited to all these tournaments. But here's the thing. Gonzaga pursued those opportunities. They didn't shy away from those opportunities. If they were invited to a holiday tournament, they went to that tournament. Gonzaga every year is in a good holiday tournament. Every year. And they usually play 1 or 2 or 3 decent, games in their non-conference. So every year when you look at Gonzaga, if they're ranked, you don't really question it. Yeah, there are some better Gonzaga teams than others. We can debate that. But usually you understand why they're ranked and you understand why they get in and you understand it. St. Mary's has not done any of that. And St. Mary's has been around long enough. They made the NCAA tournament, even whether you think they should have or not. Enough years, beating Gonzaga, have done enough, okay, that at this point, if they go out there and pursue opportunities, they should be able to get some. Somebody will play them. Yeah, you might have to go to their building. So what? And don't tell me you can't get into a holiday tournament. There's about 200 of them now. You can find something. You can go do something. Or by golly, win your tournament for once. Don't come to me and try to make this sympathy thing go. We got screwed. No, you have gotten in many, many years when you shouldn't have. You have been ranked in the top 25 when you shouldn't have been. For years, people parade around St. Mary's. Oh, they can go far in the tournament. St. Mary's has never, ever, ever, to this point, proven themselves to have that much credibility in terms of being able to make a decent run in the NCAA tournament. They might
get a Sweet 16 run. They might get a Sweet 16 run here and there, but that's very rare for St. Mary's. They're one of those higher seed teams they're one of the higher seeded teams that usually gets knocked out and it's claimed to be an upset.
Right.
It's not an upset.
I honest to God think I never picked them to win a game. I honest to God don't think I ever have. Since they started making this tournament regularly. I honest to God don't think I've ever picked them to win a game. I just never buy into them. I'm sorry. And this comes from somebody, and I hate to be piling on St. Mary's, but it's to me that was the biggest direct message this committee has sent in years, specifically to one team. That was a message. That was like, you know what? You've been skating by. You've been getting into this tournament probably when you shouldn't have been. This year, we're not buying into it. You're gone. You're out. This is a team that 2 weeks ago was in the top 25, and they didn't make the NCAA tournament. When's the last time you've seen that? I don't know. I don't know if I remember. I'd have to go back and look. But now, we're piling on St. Mary's. I think the only team I feel has a right to gripe is Oklahoma State.
Yep.
To me, that beating Kansas twice, you beat Oklahoma twice. How Oklahoma gets in over you is an embarrassment. That is an embarrassment. And Doug Gottlieb and all these other people thinking Syracuse is the one that's the culprit over that kept Oklahoma State out. No. Because Syracuse beat enough teams to get into the field.
Yep.
Syracuse didn't go 0 for whatever on the road in the last 2.5 months. So don't you want to make a case for knocking Oklahoma out for Oklahoma State? That's your argument. And that was the case. That was the argument that people were making all week. All week they were setting the stage throughout the whole entire Big 12 tournament. Oklahoma should be out. Oklahoma State should be in. That's what everybody was saying, and I agree with it. I had Oklahoma into the field into the last 2 weeks, and then I said, you know what? No. They don't deserve to go. They haven't done enough. And I think you and me agree on this about how we felt for years that the committee was right to consider how you do in your last 10 games.
Yeah.
You and me always agreed on that. And I hate that they've gotten away from that because they've let some teams in. I mean, again, I realize that might have kept Syracuse out a year or two over the last few. I get that, you know. But I think that's a vital statistic because how many times do we see a team go into the NCAA tournament that might have had a bad first half of the year, but really came on strong late in the season? Maybe they went 7-3 in their last 10 or whatever, right? They go into the tournament, they make the Final Four. Momentum. Yeah, momentum is so important. It is so important. And I think that last 10 criteria has to come back. This whole quadrant thing was stupid to begin with. It really was. They got to get rid of that because it didn't help anything. It made things more confusing for some teams, I think. But you know what? Oklahoma State has a gripe. I think Notre Dame maybe a little bit does, but Notre Dame's a hard case. I mean, we've seen this over the years with injuries where sometimes they let a team in because they kind of can look at it and go, well, you know, you would have won these games. And I do believe that Notre Dame would have won 20 games and been a lock for the NCAA tournament if they hadn't lost Matt Farrell and Bonzie Colson. I believe that. I do believe that. But here's the problem for Notre Dame. When they had Colson, when they had Farrell, they lost to some bad teams. They lost to Ball State. So I think that's probably what ended up keeping them out of this tournament or keeping them in a very vulnerable position. They probably looked at this and go, well, geez, you know, you had some bad losses even when you had your two top players. And I think that might have really hurt their case a little bit. I think they would have gotten in had Davidson gosh, who's the other team that stole a bid from Conference USA? I'm trying to think who did that.
TCU?
No, TCU's in the Big 12.
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
How much I know.
Oh, Marshall. Marshall took the bid. You know, because it's supposed to be Middle Tennessee, and they didn't make this tournament. And I feel bad. But there's just too many other teams. They didn't do enough. Point blank, they probably did better, more than St. Mary's did, but they still didn't do enough.
They did do more than St. Mary's did.
They did. So, you know, they would be more in line than St. Mary's would be. But, you know, I think that was the thing. Notre Dame, if it wasn't for those bid stealers, I think Notre Dame would have made it. But I think Notre Dame was in a more vulnerable position than they would have been because of those bad losses they had early on. If they didn't have those bad losses, I think Notre Dame would have made it. Because they would have been like, well, with these guys, as you figure if they didn't have those losses, they would have been, they only had 2 losses before Colson went down. So that would have left them at what, like 14-2 or something, I think, something around there. And, you look at what they did without them. I think they won like 6 games. That's 20-2 right there. I don't know, 14-2. I think they might have been like 10 and they would have been like 10-2 or something. But still, they would have won 20 games. Or they would have been closer to that 20 game mark probably, or something like that. I don't know, but they would have been in a better position. And so I think that's what hurt Notre Dame. But I think they have an argument, but I don't think it's a hugely strong one. I think the only team that really got screwed here was Oklahoma State. They played in one of the best conferences in the country. They beat Kansas twice. I almost beat them a third time. They beat Oklahoma twice, and they still got left out. And they did more than that. They had other wins too. Oh, they beat West Virginia at West Virginia. I mean, what else do you want from that team, other than to win more games? But for a bubble team, that's a lot of quality wins. So that team, I think Oklahoma State's the only true snub. Everybody else, I think you can make the case, why they didn't make it. And I'm not trying to be a Syracuse homer here. I think Syracuse did enough. But I also can understand people that think they should. But don't give me this whole they should be out so St. Mary's can be in. Or they should be out. They should not be the first target for people that want another team in. You want to go at Arizona State first. Go at Oklahoma first. Those 2 teams did far worse than Syracuse did. One of which did in a bad conference, Arizona State. Go after those 2 teams first, because those 2 teams should have been the last 2 wins. Syracuse should not have been. If you look at the profiles, it's all there. That's just me, though. All right, enough about the snubs and everything. Let's get into the bracket. We're going to lump all this together because otherwise we'll be here all night. So as we go through the bracket, we'll talk about which regions we think are the most difficult, which ones aren't. We'll briefly go through it. We're not going to take too much time. And I'll tell you about Cinderellas and that along the way instead of doing it all separately and wasting time. So we'll go through this. Again, Radford, St. Bonaventure, and Texas Southern are all in from the first 4 so far. Keep an eye on the Syracuse game right now. Is, according to my score, 12-11 Syracuse. With 12:07 left in the first half. So, keep an eye on that game while we're on the air. That's the last game of the first 4. All right, so here we go. So now, we always do this before in the spotlight bracket out as we kind of pick the teams. So we'll do that right now. Go through the field. I'll go through a region, okay? And then I'll throw the mic and he can go through a region. And that's how we'll do it. And then, we'll stop it with the Final Four. By going through a region, I mean, okay, we'll start in the South. I'll go all the way to the final. I'll pick my team out of the South for the Final Four. And then we'll do the Final Four picks and the final 2 picks and the national championship picks at the end. It just makes sense to do it that way. So I'll start. And again, I'm going to try to move through this as quickly as possible because again, belabor the point. All right, so we're going to start off in the South, the Atlanta region. Obviously, I'm going to take Virginia over UMBC. Now, keep in mind something. And, Mike, I'm going to let you know this, too, because I don't know if you know this. Virginia's best player, Hunter, is out for the tournament.
I did not know that.
This is something I just found out today. He is out for the tournament with a broken wrist. So, that now again, Virginia can win without him. They're not a team that's overly reliant on one player. They're more about defense, but that's something to keep in mind, especially against certain teams that might be able to still be able to. I mean, look, Virginia's going to hold everybody under 7. You're just that good at defense, but if you go against a team that's more so offensively gifted that they can still score points against a good defense, you might want to take that into account. That Virginia's best offensive player is out for the tournament. So, yeah. Virginia, I'm obviously going to pick over UMBC. This Creighton-Kansas State matchup might seem like a game. I don't think it's much of one. I like Creighton. Creighton's played better competition. Well, Creighton. Well, they both played good competition, but I think Creighton's won more games against quality competition than Kansas State has. Kansas State is kind of like one of those teams that just didn't have a bad loss and won enough games against some of the lower end of the best Big 12 teams. Kentucky-Davidson's a tough game for me because Kentucky has been offensively challenged all year. If they shoot the ball well, they'll win. If they don't, then they won't. Davidson's a very offensively gifted team. They showed their potential in the A10 tournament. It's a very tough game for me. I'm going to pick Davidson here. Only because I think that what I'm not convinced Kentucky's consistent enough offensively, and Davidson has been consistent enough offensively. They have some true scorers in this tournament that can take you a long way. So I'm going to go with Davidson and make that a 12-5, which we always get every year. Arizona, Buffalo. I have liked Buffalo all year. They have done very, very well. They're a very good basketball team. Arizona's obviously had some controversy with Sean Miller. They're very, but I don't know. They have a lot of talent, and I know they had that really tough start to the season, but they have some of the best players in college basketball, including the top player in college basketball in my mind. And I'm going to say that that's enough talent to get by a very tough Buffalo team. I'm going to take Arizona over Buffalo. In the 6-11 game, Miami, Loyola, Chicago. Loyola, Chicago is going to surprise some people because they can defend really well. And Miami has had some injury issues. They've been able to have a really good season despite that. They're a very good basketball team. But the problem with Miami is when you watch Miami, they don't overwhelm you. They're a good basketball team. They're a very good basketball team. But they're not on that same level like as a Villanova. They are a team that can get locked down against a good defense, and they've been locked down against good defense. If you watch Loyola, they play very much like Virginia, and that should scare you if you're a Miami fan because obviously you play in the ACC, you don't play very well against Virginia. I'm actually going to pick the upset here and go with Loyola Chicago. Because I really buy into their defense, and it compares very favorably to Virginia, and that's not a good matchup for Miami. So Loyola Chicago for me. Tennessee right there. I'm going to pick Tennessee. They have great guards, and guards take you a long way in this tournament. That's one of the key pieces when you play in this tournament. You have good guard play, you go far. Tennessee has that. Nevada, Texas is a very tough matchup because you either buy into the front court of Texas, which is a very tough matchup for any team, or you buy into the talent that Nevada has, which has been under the radar all year. They're a very well-versed team on offense and on defense. They're a very solid team. I'm worried about, the front court of Texas being a matchup problem for Nevada, and that's why I'm taking Texas. Although, again, Nevada is a trendy pick. I wouldn't blame anybody for taking them. I'm taking Texas in this game. Cincinnati over Georgia State easily. I don't think that's much of a game. I'll continue on here. I got Virginia, Creighton. I'm going to go with Virginia. I just think even without Hunter, I think their defense will get them past Creighton, no problem. Davidson, Arizona. I actually like Arizona here because I think they got the players to be able to go up against the offensive juggernaut of Davidson. Again, I guess they got some of the best players in the country, including the best player in the country. I think Tennessee gets past a very tough Loyola Chicago defense. They got the guards to do it, so I like Tennessee there. And I like Cincinnati over Texas because, again, defensively they can get after. They're a very physical team, as most Cincinnati teams usually are, but they also have the guard play to get by, too. So I like Cincinnati there. Cincinnati, Tennessee, I think is a very good basketball game. I like Tennessee to beat Cincinnati. I buy into guard play in this tournament. It's the reason why I think Villanova is always so good. So I like Tennessee there. I think they got more. I think their guards are better than Cincinnati's. Virginia, Arizona. I'm taking Arizona. If Hunter was available, I would take Virginia. But with no Hunter, I don't know if they have enough offense. I think Arizona can deal with the Virginia defense. I think they got the players to deal with it. I'm trying to keep Sean Miller out of this because I think Arizona's good enough on their own. Even with everything that's happened, again, the rough start, I like Arizona over Virginia. Arizona, Tennessee, I think that's a very, very, very good matchup. But again, I think Arizona's got the better players, and that often shows up. I don't know if Tennessee's got enough defensively to be able to shut them down. I'm taking Arizona to come out of the South. All right, Mike, go ahead. You take the South.
Okay. The South region. Well, knowing that the Virginia player had just gone down, This might look a little different. Anyway, so let's go through it really quickly, far quicker than you. Virginia, it's going to go over UMBC. Creighton over Kansas State. I'm not going to pick the upset here. I'm actually going to take Kentucky over Davidson. I don't know. Something tells me Kentucky's clicking at the right time. So I'm taking Kentucky over Davidson. I agree. I'm going to take Arizona over Buffalo. I will also take Loyola Chicago over Miami. It's that Virginia-style defense that'll make all the difference in the world. Right state, but watch that one. I am also taking Texas. Don't have a reason, just have a feeling. And Cincinnati over Georgia State. So that leaves me with Creighton, Virginia. I actually have more confidence in Creighton than it sounds like you do.
Okay.
But that does, and I think, given the right circumstances, I think Creighton could possibly take the upset here. Creighton is battle tested. They've played Xavier. They've played Villanova. They played Butler. They've played some really good teams, but I feel like Virginia is going to win here. Excuse me. I think Virginia probably will win here. But if Creighton makes it out of this, makes it into the Sweet 16, don't be surprised. So that means Kentucky and Arizona. Last night when I was talking about it, I took Kentucky, but maybe I'll take Arizona here. So maybe Arizona. I took Loyola, Chicago, and Tennessee. I'm going to take Tennessee. Texas and Cincinnati, I'm taking Cincinnati. I just like Cincinnati's front court and their defense. And the fact that Cincinnati can actually score this year means a little bit. So I have Virginia and Kentucky. No, excuse me. I have Virginia and Arizona. I'm actually also taking Arizona because why not? It's just that the offense is there, and Sean Miller, I'm pretty sure Sean Miller's going to be ruled innocent at this point. So they're going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Arizona's going to be playing with a chip. They're going to play like a team possessed. So I'm going to take Arizona here. That would mean, let's see if I remember. So Arizona, I am at I think I have Tennessee and Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, that would mean I'm taking Cincinnati because I like Cincinnati's defense. Cincinnati has an offense this year.
They do.
That cannot be understated. They can score baskets.
Yeah, they can.
But then again, if Cincinnati can't score baskets, they're not getting past Georgia State. So Cincinnati is, every time Cincinnati's in the tournament, they're a very, very risky pick.
They are.
So I've just talked myself out of taking Cincinnati, and I'm taking Tennessee, which means I have Arizona and Tennessee, and unfortunately I have to take the Pac-12 team because Arizona is better offensively. So yeah, I guess I'm taking Arizona despite my better judgment, although I will say Virginia could come out of this bracket. Cincinnati, if they decide to not lay a fucking egg, could possibly come out of this bracket.
Agreed.
I think Kentucky could come out of this bracket, and under good circumstances, if everything collapses around them, watch for Creighton. Creighton might be able to do something if they can get past Kansas State.
So we got very similar South, you and me.
Similar, yes.
I agree with you on this. I think, you have to watch out. Creighton's kind of like a sleeper in this bracket. There's possible Cinderellas are Davidson, Loyola. Cincinnati is kind of a dark horse, as is Tennessee, as I mentioned too. The top heavy, the two favorites are either Virginia or Arizona, easily.
Yeah.
It's a tough bracket, though. Again, we talked about this off the air. Number one overall seed, it tends to every year get the toughest bracket. And this is a tough bracket for Virginia, especially without Hunter. It's a tough bracket.
Yeah. It became a tougher bracket with that. And I thought Virginia got a really rough draw to begin with.
Yeah, but it's even tougher now. So
it's even tougher now.
All right. So
because real quick, because Arizona is really, really good, unfortunately, and Kentucky's turning it on at the right time, and those are its initial matches. So minefield. Right. Anyways, is it my turn to go first?
Yeah, you can. We'll go to the West right now. You start.
But why do I want to go to the East?
All right, go to the East. Why not?
You know what? I want to flip the script. I'm going to the East. So, okay, the whole reason I'm going to the East is because Villanova's there.
Yeah.
So, Villanova over Radford. Tech and Alabama. Obviously, Brian's going to give you more in-depth kind of analysis here. Alabama, I don't feel Alabama. They've had a better year than previous Alabama teams. But I'm going to take Virginia Tech here. I think Virginia Tech's played a better schedule. They got better players overall. West Virginia and Murray State. I am going to take West Virginia here. Murray State's pretty decent on offense, but West Virginia, like Cincinnati, is always kind of a risky pick because you don't know if West Virginia is going to come out and shit the bed or West Virginia is going to come out and make an Elite Eight run. You never know. But I think West Virginia has enough to get past Murray State here. And Wichita State and Marshall. Marshall is essentially Wichita State light.
Yeah.
They're playing Wichita State. They're playing Wichita State. So if I'm giving the alternative, if I'm taking the alternative or the superior original, I'm going to take the superior original every time. If Marshall was playing anybody else, almost anybody else, you could make an argument for Marshall being a dark horse here, but they're playing Wichita State, so I'm taking Wichita State. Flaw and Bonaventure. Bonaventure has energy. If St. Bonaventure has the energy, because they just played a relatively close game with UCLA that went rather down to the wire. And first four teams don't usually win their next game. But if St. Bonaventure has the energy to do it, they can certainly beat Florida. But Florida is one of those teams that kind of came on a little bit at the end of the year. But I would feel comfortable taking St. Bonaventure there. Texas Tech and Stone Cold Stephen F. Austin. There will be no glass shattering in this one. Texas Tech advances. Arkansas Butler is an interesting 7-10. I'm going to take Butler here. Butler has better wins than Arkansas. I don't know if you've noticed. So I don't know. I think one of those teams should be kind of flipped. Arkansas has some really good players, though, but I think Butler's the better team. Taking Butler. Purdue and Cal State Fullerton. I'm taking Purdue. That's not a thing. So I've got Nova and Virginia Tech. Nova over Virginia Tech. Just better all around. So I've got West Virginia and Wichita State, which could be one of the games of the second round if it happens. I would take West Virginia here, but again, a couple factors. Wichita State is an intense team. They've got a great defense. They've got a great system, and they can score. West Virginia, if they don't score, they have lots of problems. So, but I feel like this West Virginia team is very good. I'm going to take them. But if they don't score, Wichita State's going to run them out of the goddamn gym. So I'm going to take West Virginia. I have St. Bonaventure and Florida and Texas Tech. I feel very comfortable taking Texas Tech over whoever comes out of that game. Texas Tech goes on. Butler and Purdue. Purdue is one of those teams that had a great year and kind of didn't do so hot at the end of the year. Butler, however, but they did win the Big Ten regular season fight. Did they win or did Michigan State win? Ryan.
What?
Ryan. Michigan State or who won the Big Ten regular? Was it Purdue or was it Michigan State?
Neither.
Unless it was
Purdue. Regular season, I think it was Purdue, I think. Hang on, I got to check that. I don't even remember.
I'm pretty certain it was Purdue. Brian, pay attention. They're going to start throwing dirt on you. Come on.
I am paying attention. I'm trying to do 3 things at once. I got emails coming in and stuff. Relax. I am paying attention.
R.I.P. Bobby Heenan for that one. I'm actually going to take the 10 over the 2 in that one. Butler is not a 10. But I'm going to take Butler over Purdue, but don't be surprised if Purdue can get past that one. Okay, so that means I've got Villanova and West Virginia.
Michigan State won the regular season.
Oh, all right. That's weird. Anyways, I got Villanova and West Virginia. I think Villanova Villanova can be stopped by a superior defense. But Villanova's offense, and they have so many weapons they cannot even funny. So I'm going to take Villanova. So regardless of what West Virginia has, I'm taking Villanova. Villanova's the Elite Eight. The Elite Eight, yes.
You playing?
Let's see. So I've got at this point Texas Tech and Butler. If Butler makes it to the Elite Eight, it could be the one team Villanova may struggle with significantly because Butler knows how to beat Villanova. That being said, I'm taking Texas Tech. Texas Tech has had a fantastic year. So I'm taking Texas Tech to the Elite Eight, and Villanova and Texas Tech, interesting game. Similar at points. There are similarities there, but let's face it, Villanova is just an overall superior team. Better offense, better defense, better rebounding, better guard play. Nova to the Final Four. Brian, you should give these people more in-depth analysis than what I did.
You gave them a lot of in-depth analysis on that one. I'm not surprised that's the Villanova bracket. I'm going to be probably quicker on this one because this bracket includes a lot of teams I've been high on all season. And I told you this off the air. I like to just jump off the bandwagon on teams if I still buy into them. I tend to stick with them if I still feel confident in them, and I do. Really quickly, though, the only reason I was kind of distracted because I'm just in the emails and stuff. Syracuse just had a little bit of a scare. Osei Brissett came down on his back really hard. He was down. They went to commercial break. He is in the game, but he came down on his back really hard. So something to watch out for going forward here for Syracuse. That was pretty scary from what I saw. So going back to the bracket. Obviously, I'm taking Villanova over Radford. No question about that. I've liked Virginia Tech all year. I think they're battle tested. They got great players. They got great shooters from the perimeter. Buzz Williams teams usually do well in tournament play. Alabama's been, but the thing that scares me about this game is Alabama's been hot, and when they've had to win games, they've won games. They went to the SEC tournament. They were pretty much left. They were off the bubble. And they rattled off enough wins to get into this tournament. So they scare me a little bit, especially Colin Sexton, who has been playing incredibly well. And if you have a player like that, you can go far. I just think Virginia Tech's been a little bit more consistent, and this is a better team. I'm going to go Virginia Tech. West Virginia, Murray State. I like West Virginia. I've liked West Virginia all year. I know they've had their struggles, but with their press and their ability, their players, their length, I like West Virginia. Wichita State, Marshall, that's a game. Wichita State's was probably wishing they didn't get something like this. They've had nothing but bad draws all year. Every time they need a win, they go against the worst possible team for them to win a game. This is like the worst matchup. They get a terrible matchup here at Marshall. I expect a very close game. Wichita State, though, again, I think most of the time in these games, the better players get you the game. And I think Wichita State can eke out a win here against Marshall. So, again, I worry about them in this game, but I think they'll pull it out. I like Wichita State over Marshall. I'm not going to lie. Florida St. Bonaventure scares me. St. Bonaventure's physical. They're a really good basketball team. Against UCLA, I think Florida would have had it easy. I think this is a tough game for Florida, but I've liked Florida. Again, like West Virginia, Wichita State, and Wichita State. I liked them all year. I'm not going to jump off them now. They're offensively, they're extremely gifted. The only question is whether they defend. If they defend, they're a Final Four team. If they don't, then they could be a first round out. I'm taking Florida here because I'm buying into them. I'm still buying into them. So Florida over St. Bonaventure. I have changed my mind here. Mike's going to be shocked. I like Texas Tech a lot. They're battle tested. They play in the good Big 12. They came in second in the Big 12. They're a very good basketball team, but from what I've seen, and I've come to worry more about Stephen F. Austin than I thought I would. And I think there's a matchup issue here. I think they can get after it on the glass. I think there's a matchup issue here defensively for Texas Tech. I like Stephen F. Austin over Texas Tech. So I'm going to go with that one. Let's see. We got Arkansas, Butler. as long as Butler comes to play defensively, I think they don't have an issue here. I like Butler over Arkansas. Purdue, I like over Cal State Fullerton. Purdue Butler is a tough game, but I think Purdue's just got better. Too many players for Butler to guard, and Purdue can play a gritty kind of game. They're not going to shy away from that. They play in the Big Ten, so I like Purdue. I like Florida over Stephen F. Austin. I just think they got too much offense for them. West Virginia, I like in a game against Wichita State. I think the press are going to give Wichita State fits. And I just think West Virginia's length is going to give them fits. We've seen in the American this year that Wichita State's had some issues with that. So I like West Virginia there. That's a tough game because both those teams are teams I think could be Final Four teams. So Villanova, Virginia Tech, that's a scary game for Villanova because, Buzz Williams is going to know how to play against them. They have the players on the perimeter to compete with Villanova. But I think Villanova, because the important thing to know about Villanova is they got the awesome guard play, which is very important in this tournament. But they also have interior guys that can play. And that's why Villanova is so good. I think that's the difference. I like Villanova over Virginia Tech. Villanova is strong with the ball because of their guards. I don't think they'll have a problem with the press against West Virginia. I don't think they'll have any problem with the length. They played against teams with length all year. Villanova over West Virginia. Florida, Purdue, I like Florida. I'm not so sure if Purdue will have enough offense to answer against Florida. I really don't. Even if Florida doesn't defend, I think Florida can make it a high-scoring game and present a lot of problems for Purdue. I like Florida. And then Villanova, Florida, I think that would be an offensive light show. But I think Villanova's just got too much because Villanova can defend better than Florida can on even that good day. I like Villanova over Florida. So I got Villanova coming out of the East. So again, similar type brackets for me and Mike again. All right, let's go down to the Midwest. We'll do West for last. All right, I'm going to take and by the way, in that East bracket, you're looking for a sleeper. I guess. If you want to call Florida or Wichita State or West Virginia sleepers, those would be your sleepers. I really don't see any Cinderellas there. Some people think Marshall can be one, but I don't really see anything else there. I guess St. Bonaventure could wreck some brackets. But anyway, down to the Midwest, I'm going to take Kansas, obviously, over Penn. Seton Hall, NC State might be the toughest 8-9 game on the board. Both these teams are really, really well coached, really, really good teams. I'm taking NC State only because if you look at their resume, I think they've beaten better teams than Seton Hall. Overall, I think they've beaten more good teams than Seton Hall has. And I think they match up better with Seton Hall than Seton Hall might match up better with NC State. I think I just think fundamentally NC State is maybe a little bit better on the perimeter than Seton Hall is. And I think that might be the difference. So NC State over Seton Hall. I like Clemson, even with the injuries they have, over New Mexico State. I like Auburn over Charleston. I'm not as high on Auburn as some people are, but they'll beat Charleston. TCU over Arizona State, Syracuse. If it's Syracuse, I think they give TCU a better game. And I'm betting on it being Syracuse. Arizona State, I think TCU will win because they're very good defensively. They're well coached by Jamie Dixon. If it's Syracuse, I still think it's a tough game because Jamie Dixon's teams have a tendency to beat Syracuse. But if it is Syracuse, I'm picking Syracuse to beat TCU. So I guess if I'm assuming it's Syracuse, I'm going to take Syracuse in that game. I'm going to take Michigan State over Bucknell, but I've been saying this to people off the air all week. I have a bad feeling about Michigan State in that game for some reason. I have no reason to think. I have no reasons behind it. I just have a bad feeling about it for some reason. And Bucknell's done it before. So I'm taking Rhode Island over Oklahoma. I just don't trust Oklahoma. They've been so bad this year. I'm taking Duke over Iona, although that game scares me because Iona can definitely score, and Duke is not deep. And they've had their share of issues defensively and playing a zone. I think they can get lit up. But, yeah, I'm taking Duke over Iona. I'm going to take Duke over Rhode Island, although that game scares me too because, again, offensively, with Duke playing a zone and not being deep, you worry against offensive teams if they can keep up and defend enough. Because, again, I know Duke's got a good offense, but I just don't know if they can keep up with their defense not being able to hold teams down. I'm going to take Michigan State over Syracuse. That game never goes well for Syracuse. Syracuse got a good record against Tom Izzo, but it's in Detroit. I think that will hurt them. And I don't think they have enough offense this year, even with the zone. So Michigan State over Syracuse. Clemson-Auburn's a very tough game. I think if Clemson had their full array of players, I'd take Clemson. But because of the injuries and because of the lack of versatility offensively, I'm going to take Auburn over Clemson. Kansas-NC State's a very tough game. NC State's made a habit out of beating good teams all year. I think they match up very well with Kansas. Kansas has been more perimeter-oriented than they've ever been this year with Graham. That's pretty much the only consistent thing they have on offense. Because of that, I'm going to pick NC State for the upset to beat Kansas because I think they can pull that off because Kansas is more one-dimensional than they've ever been. So that leaves me with NC State, Auburn. I like NC State. Again, if they can beat teams like Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, they can beat a team like Auburn, who I think is real overrated. And then you got Michigan State, Duke. We've seen that game. You know, you wonder if Duke's depth issues will come into play there. And now that they're playing a zone, if that will hurt them against Michigan State. I'm going to say no because, again, Michigan State has let me down too many times. And I'm not even talking about this year. I'm talking about, I'm not even talking about in the past. I'm talking about this year. They let me down. I think Duke has enough to get by Michigan State. That leaves you with Duke, NC State. Which Duke has played. I think they'll have a tough time, but I think Duke, NC State hasn't always done well against the zone. They managed to win games against the zone. They beat Syracuse, but sometimes, again, they've struggled. So I think Duke having better talent offensively and playing a zone, I think they'll have enough to get by NC State. So I'm taking Duke out of the Midwest. Mike?
Okay. All right. So I've been listening. I've been studying a little bit. So I'm going to go really quickly through the Midwest. Kansas is going to beat Penn. And obviously, I think my bracket is going to look fairly similar to yours. Kansas beat Penn. NC State over Seton Hall. That's just matchup problems. Clemson over New Mexico State. Auburn over Charleston. But watch that game. Watch that game. TCU. All right. This is the weirdest one. If it's Arizona State, because again, Jamie Dixon. If it's Arizona State, they're going to beat Arizona State pretty handily. If it's Syracuse, it'll be a game, but I think Syracuse has better offensive capabilities than TCU. So Syracuse, if it's Syracuse, I take over TCU. If it's TCU versus Arizona State, then I am certainly taking your TCU. So there we go. Michigan State, Bucknell. I agree with Brian. And again, I've been saying this all year. I don't trust Michigan State for anything. Michigan State sucks. Anyways, but I see this game being way closer than it should be. If Bucknell gets some calls down late, they could definitely pull off the offset, but I'm going to take Michigan State here. Rhode Island versus Oklahoma. I'm going to predict two things. I'm going to predict Trae Young gets 25 to 30 shots attempted. And I'm also picking Rhode Island because Oklahoma's biggest flaw, other than they shouldn't be here, is that all of the other players, Oklahoma's a team made of 12 to 15 players and 5 players on the court. The other 4 players on the court fade into the background when Trae Young is jacking up shots. And that's not going to be enough. Oklahoma State, I watched Oklahoma State decimate Oklahoma by just letting Trae Young shoot. He'll make a bunch, he'll miss a bunch. He'll get 35 points, but Oklahoma is going to lose by 10. Rhode Island's going to win. Duke and Iona, watch that game. Iona could knock off Duke, but I doubt it because refereeing. Anyways, Duke over Iona. That's going to leaves Duke. I'm going to go back to the top. That leaves NC State, Kansas. Kansas moves on. I am not as high on NC State as Brian is. I think Bill Self is going to get those guys ready to go. I think Kansas is going to move on. I have Clemson and Auburn. I think on my bracket I took Clemson, but I was not aware of all of the injuries Clemson had suffered. That being said, taking the injuries into account, I think Auburn is a fairly good team, very capable, and they're going to give Clemson fits. However, if that Clemson defense is on point. And Clemson does have a nice full court press. If Clemson does decide to show up and play offensively, they could really beat Auburn. But I'm going to take Auburn here. Okay. Michigan State versus the winner of the 6-11 game. I will say this. If it ends up being Bucknell-Syracuse, I'm pretty sure everybody here in Syracuse is going to go into a canatotic state. But if it's Bucknell-Syracuse, Syracuse moves on. But if it's not, if it's TCU-Michigan State, Michigan State wins. If it's Arizona State and Michigan State, Michigan State wins. If it's Syracuse and Michigan State, this could be a very interesting game. But Syracuse has problems scoring the basketball. It's going to prove pretty rough here in against Arizona State. It'll prove rough against TCU. But TCU is a team that doesn't score an awful lot. That being said, I will take Syracuse. Excuse me, I would not. I will take Michigan State over Syracuse. So regardless of what happens, I have Michigan State moving on for some reason. I have Rhode Island and Duke, and I'm taking Duke. That means I have Duke, Michigan State. I'm taking Duke because Michigan State's bound to lay an egg sometime. Wink. So that leads to the top. I have Kansas and Auburn. Kansas moves on. Kansas, I like Kansas's coaching. I think Bill Self, and Kansas always plays defense. I mean, for the love of God, the Big 12 is more competitive this year than ever before, and Kansas still won it. Kansas still won the conference and the conference tournament. I think Kansas is getting hot at the right time, and I think Kansas is going to move past Auburn or Clemson, whoever you want to take. And that leaves me with a 1 and 2. It's chalky as all hell, but you know what? Sometimes chalk happens. That being said, Kansas and Duke, I think Kansas is getting hot at the right time. Duke is not as defensively gifted as they've been previously. And I think Kansas's defense, you might say what you will about Kansas's offense, but Kansas's defense has been pretty on point this year. Duke, more this year, more than ever before, requires a light show. They require high-scoring games to kind of, and refereeing, obviously, to get past their opponents. And I don't think it's going to happen. I think Kansas beats Duke and comes out of the Midwest. So I have Kansas. And I'm assuming Brian is not back yet. So I just want a quick score update for Syracuse and Arizona State before I start on the West. Spoiler alert. All right. We're at the half. It's a close game. Syracuse is up 30-28. So Syracuse is keeping up offensively with Arizona State, which is a good sign moving forward. But the second half is a minefield all on its own. All right, so let's move to the West. All right, Xavier. This is an interesting bracket. I just want to point that out. This is a very interesting bracket. It's difficult in certain ways, and it's not difficult in certain ways. And since I'm going first, I'm not going to be as risky as Brian. But I'm going to predict this. Xavier is going to beat Texas Southern. But watch this game. Watch this game a little bit. Texas Southern could do some things against Xavier. Could be close. Every year we get a scare with the 116 for a while. This could be the scare that we get. But Xavier is going to be Texas Southern. I'm just predicting that. I don't have any belief that it's going to happen, but I'm predicting that. Anyways, Missouri, Florida State. I think Florida State's a better team overall, better defense. Missouri competed. They're not bad. So I'm taking Missouri. I'm in the West now.
I know you are.
Ohio and South Dakota State. Ohio State and South Dakota State. Ohio State. But this game should be interesting because South Dakota State is underrated. In fact, this might be a 5-12 you could be very comfortable in taking. Because Ohio State has trouble scoring. Spoilers. All right. Gonzaga UNC Greensboro. Watch this game too. Greensboro is pretty decent. Pretty decent. I'm going to take Gonzaga. And it hurts me to take Gonzaga, but I'm taking Gonzaga. But this could be another upset. Houston and San Diego State taking Houston. Michigan, Montana. I will take Michigan. But every time I see Montana here, I always want to take Montana. I always do. Texas A&M Providence. This Texas A&M failed, didn't they? They fell. I am taking Providence. I feel like Providence has beaten better teams that are more battle-tested in a way than Texas A&M. Providence had to compete with Xavier and Butler and Creighton and Villanova all year, and they've actually beaten all those teams. I'm taking Providence. Why not? Taking 7/10. North Carolina Lipscomb. Come on. Those boys at UNC might not be able to find their way into a classroom, but they could sure play basketball. So I'm taking Carolina. All right, that brings me to Florida State and Xavier. I'm taking Xavier, but that game could be very interesting. Xavier is lanky, and they got good play, and Florida State's got some solid defense, but I'm going to take Xavier. That brings me to Ohio State Gonzaga. By the way, this could also be South Dakota State and UNC Greensboro. If that's the case, I take South Dakota State, but it's not the case, so I'm probably going to take Gonzaga. I don't have any reasons. It's just I don't like the Big Ten.
We know.
It's not great. Houston and Michigan. It's an interesting game. Michigan came on fire at the right time, but Michigan has had about 6 days off. They've had about 2 weeks off. Houston, they've been competitive all year. They knocked off Cincinnati to get here, I think. I like Houston in this game. I'm willing to take Houston in this game over Michigan, but let's be honest here. Don't be surprised if Michigan runs Houston out of the building. I think Houston's defense is good enough to really hold Michigan at bay. So that leaves me with Providence and North Carolina. Although Providence has knocked off some big teams this year, and they could do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Especially a Carolina team that's not as gifted as previous teams, especially a Carolina team who's, having a little bit of a rough go of it at this point in time. So watch out. Providence, Carolina could be interesting, but I'm going to take Carolina. That leaves me with Xavier and Ohio State. I'm taking Xavier. I'm taking Xavier and Gonzaga. I'm still taking Xavier. I like Xavier. The fact that Xavier's played some really good teams. Xavier's beaten some really good teams, and Xavier's on a very good hot streak right now. Gonzaga's Gonzaga. I don't know. I have Houston and pardon me. I have Houston and Carolina. I'm taking Carolina. If it's Carolina and Michigan, that could go either way, depending on what Carolina team shows up. Still taking Carolina. So that leaves me with another chalky finish. Xavier and North Carolina. And I think Xavier has too much for North Carolina at this point in time. So, unfortunately, I believe I'm taking another number one to the Final Four. So, Xavier over Carolina.
All right. First of all, I had baby duty, so I apologize. I had to step away. All right. So just going really quickly, going back to the Midwest, I got my pick out, but I wanted to say people, as far as Cinderellas go, I've seen some people picking Charleston, including my wife. I don't know if I see it, but whatever. TCU could be a bracket buster. I mean, they can win a couple games if they get out of that first game of Syracuse or Arizona State. Bucknell is dangerous against Michigan State, I think. Rhode Island could do some things, as can Iona. I don't think either one of us Cinderella. I think they can win a game. That's about it. I don't think they can go any further than that. I think, again, your favorites here I think Duke's the favorite in this bracket over Kansas. I don't think Kansas is coming out of this bracket. I just think they're too one-dimensional this year. NC State's a bracket buster. They've beaten enough good teams to scare you. I actually think Duke and Michigan State are the two favorites in this bracket. So yeah, I don't think there's any dark horses or anything like that. So let me go to the West. It's the last bracket I have to do. I'm obviously going to take Xavier. I've gone back and forth on Missouri and Florida State. Michael Porter Jr., there's been a lot of talk about him. He's been missing all season. I just don't think he's had enough time. I think, I don't think he can give you enough to be like some kind of big X factor in this game to make a difference. And with that in mind, I think, if you take that into account, I think Florida State just has more better players. They're not the best defensive Florida State, but they got more offense this year. And I think that bodes well for them against Missouri. I like Florida State over Missouri. I want to pick Ohio State. I want to pick South Dakota State. I am going to pick South Dakota State, but I worry because I think Ohio State, it's one of the better offensive Ohio State teams that they've had. That's not saying much. Especially since it's been a bad Big Ten. You don't know if that's a mirage or not. But South Dakota State's a really good basketball team, and I think they might just be the better team. So because of that, I'm taking South Dakota State. I like Gonzaga over Greensboro. I don't think that's a question. I don't worry about them there. I think they're playing their best basketball at the right time. I don't see an upset there. Houston, San Diego State. I think that's going to be a close game, but I do like Houston. I think they've been underappreciated all year. I think they're a really good team. San Diego State kind of came out late and kind of surprised people with their win in their tournament. They're a good team. They're okay, but I think Houston's got better players. I think, especially on defense, that can present problems for San Diego State. So I like Houston. I love Michigan over Montana. I don't have any issues there. I think that's just a mismatch. Providence, A&M has got, A&M never totally collapsed. They didn't collapse quite like Arizona State and Oklahoma did. But if you look at where they are now compared to where they were in like December, it's a stark contrast. A&M's not a bad team, but they're against a team like Providence, who's beaten better teams and who offensively can do a lot of things. They're very versatile. That's just a bad matchup. I like Providence. I've seen a lot of teams thinking Lipscomb can somehow beat Carolina. And that's actually been one of the more popular 15-2s, even more so in Duke Iona, which I think is the most worrisome 15-2 out there. I don't see it. I like North Carolina. The thing about North Carolina is they're one of the better defensive North Carolina teams, because North Carolina usually play defense, but this year they do. They're a good defensive team. They offensive rebound, which I think is a very big key. And they have May and Barry. They have interior and perimeter offense. They can go inside out better than most teams in the country can. So I like North Carolina here. I just think they're too good. I like North Carolina over Providence. I just think North Carolina is too much. Again, I think the rebounding ability is going to give a lot of teams problems with North Carolina. And also the fact they play better defense than they ever have. I like Michigan over Houston. Michigan's playing their best basketball right now. John Beilein's teams do very well in tournament play. The offensive style that they play, the wide open offensive style they play, is a major issue for a lot of teams in tournament play. I like Michigan over Houston. I like Gonzaga over South Dakota State. I think, again, Gonzaga playing their best basketball. They have the good guard play right now going on. And I just think Gonzaga is the better team here. And I think Gonzaga beats South Dakota State. I like Xavier over Florida State. Physical, defensive, again, better players. Xavier over Florida State. Xavier Gonzaga, I think, is an interesting game. I wasn't high on Gonzaga at the start of the year, but again, they've come on strong late. I think this is more of a game than people think, but I think the fact that Xavier is such a physical basketball team and can play any style play. We used to talk about this with Louisville. Mike knows this. It's adaptable. If you're adaptable, you can win a lot of games. You can go through this tournament and get to the Final Four pretty easily. And Chris Mack has, I think, his best Xavier team, and I think they're more adaptable than a lot of Xavier teams have been. They can play up and down. They can play a gritty kind of style of basketball. So I think they can play any which way you want to play. So I like Xavier in that game against Gonzaga because I think they can play up and down if that's what Gonzaga wants to do. So, or they can be that physical, gritty kind of game. But yeah, I like Xavier over Gonzaga. Michigan, North Carolina might be one of the best games of this tournament. I think it's a lot of offense, but I think the key to this game, again, is North Carolina's ability to defend the ball and North Carolina's ability to rebound the basketball, particularly offensive rebounding. That, to me, is the difference between them and Michigan, and that's why I would pick North Carolina to advance past Michigan. Xavier, North Carolina. I think North Carolina beats Xavier. I really like the way North Carolina plays. Again, matchups are key. But in a matchup against Xavier, I think they have the matchup advantage because of the rebounding. They can play against a physical basketball team. They can defend the ball well. All those things are pluses against a team like Xavier. I'm going with North Carolina over Xavier to go to the Final Four. As far as Cinderella's go in this bracket, again, I could see South Dakota State winning a game. I mean, Providence could be a bracket buster. Mike is absolutely right. They could do something, maybe win one or even two. Maybe they can get a win against Carolina. I don't feel confident enough in that, but I could see it. If Michael Porter Jr. surprises the world, ends up turning into what we all thought he would be at the beginning of the year before his injury, then Missouri can make a huge run. They really can. They have enough talent to do that. I like Houston a lot. I just think if they're playing any other team but Michigan, I think Houston could have gone really, really far. I don't buy into Lipscomb, but a lot of teams are picking them. So people are picking them. So if you want to throw that one out there, you probably can. Obviously, I don't think Xavier's the favorite in this bracket. I think North Carolina is. I think even Gonzaga is more of a favorite than Xavier. A lot of people are going with Gonzaga based on the way they played in the final month of the season. I don't know if I see that, but I think they're a trendy pick. They could be like a dark horse pick. So, all right, so my Final Four: Arizona, North Carolina, Villanova, Duke. All right, so I'll pick my championship game and my champion, and I'll throw to Mike. Arizona, North Carolina, talk about a game full of stars. You got the experienced stars of North Carolina versus the inexperienced stars of Arizona. Arizona has the best players. North Carolina has very good players with experience. To me, experience goes a long way, especially in a championship setting. And again, I think one of the things I've come to appreciate about North Carolina is their ability to defend and their ability to rebound the ball, especially offensively, and give second opportunities, even third opportunities. With that in mind, I like North Carolina over Arizona. Villanova, Duke. To me, this is not even a question. Villanova has depth. Duke doesn't. Villanova's guard play is more experienced and I think better than Duke's. Villanova has more shooters than Duke, which you never usually say, but it's the truth. Villanova's interior can handle what Duke can throw at them with Bagley and company. Villanova's flat out the better team. Villanova over Duke. And I'm not even sure that would be much of a game. I think it'd be like a 10 to 15 point beat down by Villanova. So we have a rematch of a game we got 2 years ago, which Mike will cherish. Villanova, North Carolina. I like Villanova to cut down the nets and win the national championship for the second time in 3 years. Good guard play. They have enough on the interior. They defend the ball well. I think they can deal with the rebounding and the on the ball defense of North Carolina. Villanova over North Carolina, 81-76. Again, I think it'll be a very offensive based game, up and down game. If Virginia had Hunter, I think Virginia would be in North Carolina's spot, but they don't. But yeah, Villanova over North Carolina, my championship game, 81-76. Mike, go ahead.
All right, going off of memory, it's been a minute. So I have Xavier and Arizona. Xavier and Arizona. And I think this is a very good game. Arizona's got more stars. It's got the best player in college basketball. Xavier has a very solid defense, a pretty respectable offense, and a lot of length. And that's, you can't underwrite that.
No.
But that being said, if Arizona's stars go off, and I believe Arizona's going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder this entire tournament, I think Arizona will overcome Xavier. So that puts Arizona into the final. They will play the winner of, I have Villanova and Kansas. And as I pointed out earlier, and I feel like Kansas is being written off a little bit here. But you have to keep in mind, Kansas won the Big 12. And the Big 12 didn't exactly have a down year. So they found ways to beat more multi-dimensional teams with what they have. So I think Villanova versus Kansas is a very scary game. That being said, I think Villanova has far too much for Kansas. I think yes, Kansas has decent 3-point shooting, perimeter shooting, but I think Villanova has the superior everything. So that brings me to Villanova versus Arizona. If you didn't notice, I take Villanova over Arizona. Villanova over Kansas. I'm also taking Villanova over Arizona. Arizona might have the single best player in college basketball, but Villanova has the other best players in college basketball. They've got one of the best. They've got a forward at Villanova who's already being compared to Kawhi Leonard.
Oh, yeah.
You don't mess that. Yeah, you got kids in Villanova being compared to probably the best all-around player in the NBA, Kawhi Leonard. So that being said, I think Villanova, this is Nova's year. I think this is their year. They've got the team to do it. If they can get by some of the mind slots, I just looked at something that said momentum slots. If they can get past some of the minefields in their region, I think they have enough personnel and they are battle tested enough to beat the winners of the other regions. I am taking Villanova to win the national championship this year. And I am saying that final total is 75-72.
You mentioned the Kawhi Leonard comparison. You know, the guy from Arizona that had a great week Alabama, that had a great week last week in the SEC tournament for Alabama, Colin Sexton.
Mm-hmm.
They're comparing him to Kemba Walker. So
Kemba Walker is a guy who carried his team to a national championship too. So that's not nothing.
I mean, and by the way, he's a tremendous player. He's kind of gone under the radar all year, and really just kind of had his coming out party in the SEC tournament last week. He was putting up like 30 a game. He's a tremendous player, and he's far more efficient than Trae Young is, and gets his teammates involved. So that's already a difference. But yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so keep an eye on him too. That's why I kind of worry about that Virginia Tech Alabama game, because this guy's a hell of a player. But we'll see. All right, so our brackets are done. Obviously, we'll follow them along over the tournament, and we'll along the course of the tournament, we'll talk about the games, we'll make predictions as we go along, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's it. We got through the bracket. Right now, it is the second half of the Syracuse-Arizona State game has started. It is 31-30 Arizona State. Arizona State's come out strong. I think this hit a 3, so it might be 34-30 now. They've come out really, really strong here, so kind of worrisome time for Syracuse right now.
It's worth pointing out that Syracuse really does struggle in scoring in the second half, so they've got to play above themselves right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And yeah, and Syracuse is forcing things now. So obviously that game on True TV. So if you're interested in that game, check it out on True TV. And that is the last of the first 4 games. And then tomorrow, the NCAA tournament begins truly at noon tomorrow with a whole slate of games, not wall-to-wall basketball, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's a great time of year, no doubt. So everybody can be happy and watch basketball tomorrow. If you're snowed in, you can enjoy that. It'll warm the cockles of your heart. But anyway, So that's it. We got through everything we had to get through. It went on longer than I wanted it to, but that's, kind of happens when you're previewing the bracket. So we are going to wind down. And hang on.
So we are going to wind down. I would like to thank Mike for being here. Mike, it's time for bed. All right, and let's remind you about all of the places you can find us. You can find us on Podbean. You could download us on iTunes. You could download us on the Google Play Store if we're there. I don't know. If you want to listen to all of our previous episodes, you can find us on TalkShoe and Blog Talk Radio. If you would like to find us on Google Play, you could check out the YouTube channel. I suppose we have one because we're on Google Hangouts.
All right. Relax.
Anyways.
I'm back. Sorry. If I didn't do that, we would have had the dog barking through the entire end of the show. So let's not do that. All right. So now we will wind down because, now I can talk and not have to worry about her barking through the whole thing. So the show is over. And it might be over, but that doesn't mean you have to stop interacting and contributing to the show. You can have your voice heard. So there's your feedback, questions about the show, scheduling, topic ideas, breaking news items from sports, entertainment, wrestling you want us to cover, reactions, comments, opinions on anything we did with the show. Anything you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Again, hashtag itspotlight411 is what you want to use anytime you tweet regarding our show or tweet us or any of that good stuff. Use that hashtag. And of course, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our fan page once you find it. Again, follow us on social media, Facebook and Twitter. Very important, so you get the latest information about the show when cancellations or postponements or delays or any of that kind of stuff happens, like yesterday. Best way to get that information is through social media on Facebook and Twitter. And of course, any other things we post on as well, you can have access to once you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'll be posting comments on there as I always do during the NCAA tournament over the weekend. So make sure that you follow me on there so you can get some live reactions, all that good stuff. So again, Facebook, search for In the Spotlight 411, and then make sure that you follow us on Facebook, Twitter at IT Spotlight 411, and then make sure you follow us on there, and hashtag IT Spotlight 411 you want to use when tweeting regarding our show. 2 ways to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. You can either check us out streaming anytime on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites. When you do, you'll be taken to our show page on both sites. We have access to every episode we've ever produced for Google Plus and YouTube. All episodes from October 2015 all the way up to tonight's current episode are available for you to stream anytime you want. Again, just check us out on Google Plus and YouTube. Search for In the Spotlight 411, and you'll be able to do all of that. If streaming's not your thing, maybe you prefer listening to us rather than watching us. Maybe you're interested in older episodes of the show. Want to listen to us on the go? If any of that applies to you, check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites. When you go to those sites, you'll be able to access every episode we've ever produced in the nearly 7 years that we've been doing, nearly 8 years we've been doing the show. So every episode from our original Blog Talk Radio run from October 2010 and January 2011, all of our talk show episodes from January 2011 all the way up to mid-October 2015, and all of our Google Plus and YouTube episodes from mid-October 2015 all the way up to tonight's current episode. All those episodes are transferred into audio format for your convenience. Every episode we've ever done in audio format for your convenience, for you to listen to on the go. Again, maybe missed an episode recently. You want to check it out. Maybe you want to check out an episode again. Maybe you want to listen to an episode from years ago for the first time, or just listen to it again because you haven't heard it in a while. Any of those things you can do on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411, and you can listen to those episodes anytime. So Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. And Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, your ways to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. Again, just search for In the Spotlight 411 on all of those sites. I want to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike.
Time for bed.
I want to thank myself and our great show, pass on my back, and thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that will be watching or listening to this later, thank you to you as well. Enjoy the basketball tonight, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Enjoy it. It's a fun time. Enjoy it. Hope your brackets don't go boom. And if you're in any of the snow and cold, hang in there. It gets better. We're in mid-March. It should be getting better, hopefully. Also have a very happy St. Patrick's Day on Saturday as well. And also thank you for your patience as I dealt with baby and dog duty. Thank you for that. And again, thank you for your understanding regarding last night too with that emergency. I appreciate that. With that being said, that is it for this week. That is our only show this week. So thank you for joining us for this special Wednesday show. Our next show will be next Tuesday night, March the 20th, broadcasting and streaming live here on YouTube at 9 o'clock. We're not doing the 8 o'clock thing. We're going to stick with 9 o'clock, I think. 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, because we're only doing one show, so why not, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time this Tuesday, March the 20th, is our next show. It'll be our only show of next week. As we continue to go through March, again, we'll continue to only do one show, probably at least through Easter. After that, we'll see what happens. So that's our next show. Until then, have a great rest of your night, a great weekend, and a great start to your week next week. We'll see you back here this coming Tuesday, March the 20th at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time here streaming on YouTube. Until then, good night, everybody.